Tak ahoj a dobrý den všem. Já vás vítám u dalšího dílu našeho Heureka podcastu. Mé jméno je Tomáš Praverman a když pro vás nenatáčím podcast, tak vedu Heureka Group. Heureku určitě všichni znáte, je to největší srovnávačce na kupní rádce v regionu střední a východní Evropy a tak dále. Pokud se chcete dozvědět víc, klikněte třeba k nám na web heureka.group. Now I'll switch to English because today we're gonna have a special guest, a German guest. So we'll take the interview, the podcast in English. I'm so happy that I can welcome here my dear friend Johannes Kotte. Johannes, thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks a lot for accepting my invitation, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
My pleasure, Tomáš.
Johannes, you are a managing director of a company called Visual Meta, which is maybe the Czech listeners and watchers may know because you are also active on the Czech market with the brand Shopalike.
Exactly.
Maybe the listeners will to explain it. It's a comparison site focused on fashion. I think the Czech listeners will probably know more your true competitor in the Czech Republic and also in the other countries, which is Glamy, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So Johannes, tell us some kind of introduction about your company.
First of all, thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here. Some words about Visual Meta. We've been founded in 2009 as a visual meta search engine for products that are, visually appealing. So we have a focus on fashion and living. So we're a comparison shopping portal for fashion and living. We're running 13 such comparison shopping portals under the brands Ladenzeile in the German-speaking countries, Germany and Austria. And
what does it mean actually in translation?
Ladenzeile is actually a mall, if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And under the brand of Shopalike internationally. We're active exclusively in Europe. We have around about 15 to 20 monthly visitors that can compare from around about 200 million products from 4,000 shops. We are estimating our yearly GMV, so the revenue that the shops are doing with us at around 120 million euros. We're part of the Idealo Group, which is in turn part of Axel Springer, a European or media powerhouse that has its roots in Germany. And I've been with the company now for 6 years. I joined in 2015 as a managing director. Back then, the two founders have still been on board. They went off board in 2018, and I now have one wingman that is new, and together we're running the company.
How about some financials, meaning revenues, EBITDA, stuff like that? Are you open in these questions?
Well, we're in Germany. You can read it anyways online. So we're looking at yearly revenues of around about 35 million euros.
Okay.
And 200 people, a little bit more than 200 people.
200 people. And EBITDA, how much is there left?
Pardon me?
I'm EBITDA, like profit, some profit number.
We don't share profits numbers.
No, for me, Johannes, you know me. I always try at least twice.
You try to get to the bottom of things, but we don't share that. Yeah.
But back to what you said, that it's actually legally obligatory to share the numbers. That's valid also in the Czech Republic. But the truth be told, not everybody does it. Actually, we do, but not everybody does.
Of course you do. You're clean.
Okay. And like in terms of share of what you do in the particular countries, like what does your how big share does your home country Germany do in comparison to the other countries?
Germany has the overwhelming majority of the business. So we're looking at around about 80% of business in Germany. Yes. So that is by far the most important market. There we also have the highest market shares, of course. As you said, in Czech Republic, for example, our biggest competitors are Glamy and Piano. They are, as Czech players, they're also very strong in their home market. The same is true for us in Germany.
But you run everything from Berlin, right? You don't have any offices in the other countries, do you?
Yes, that's true. We have this beautiful office here in the heart of Berlin, which is almost a completely open space in a very modern building, allegedly the most modern office building in Europe. It's been newly built. We moved in a year ago, together with a lot of other Axel Springer companies, including Idealo, as said, our mother company. And we're running all the shopping portals from Berlin. We do believe in the power of, co-location, in meeting people personally, even though it's hard these days, of course, under these circumstances. And mobile working has become an absolute normality or commodity. And we're, of course, also we've adapted to that. So nobody has to be in the office these days. But we strongly encourage people to come to the office because I do believe that nothing can actually replace the personal contact. And a lot of the better things that happened throughout the last month, didn't happen in online meetings that were scheduled. A lot of these things happen in talks that you have over lunch because you meet people, or in talks when you meet at the coffee machine. Or we have a wonderful rooftop terrace up in the 11th floor, which is a green terrace. And of course, we meet there at night. We have a sundowner drink, for example, from the beer fridge. And we talk. And a lot of really good things happen during these kinds of talks. And that's why we think it is good and important to have everyone in one place. Nevertheless, we also know that we need locals. I mean, I don't speak any Czech, for example. I don't speak Hungarian. So we, of course, hire people from those places. We are lucky that Berlin is such a vibrant and international city that attracts a lot of people from all over the world, including all the markets that we're active in. So that is it's quite possible to hire Hungarians to run a Hungarian or a Czech people to run a Czech comparison shopping portal.
Yeah, that's interesting. And actually, do you is there enough these locals, Czechs and Hungarians in Berlin, so that you hunt the people in Berlin, or do you kind of also try to get the people from, for example, Prague, to move to Berlin? I guess there's enough people in Berlin, right?
Normally there are enough, but we also do hire people from other countries, and we advertise our jobs there in many cases. The advantage being that, that people are coming directly from the market. If you have expats that live in Berlin, I don't know, for 5-10 years, they're often still in touch with their local market, of course. Nevertheless, if you live abroad for a long time, it does change you, and you lose a little bit of contact. But in fact, we do both.
Absolutely. But the topic of the home office is pretty interesting. Let's not waste too much time on it. But just wanted to ask you, what is your approach towards the employees? Meaning, are you kind of forcing, or are you going to force them to come back to the offices, or are you going to be kind of open to work from anywhere, stuff like that?
Yeah, at this point, and also even before the lockdown came, we've already sent people home, because back then it was obvious that, we needed to do something, and we needed to do our part in order to contain this pandemic. Things have changed now. I think we know more. We are more in control of things. And while we must be wary not to underestimate the danger that continues to be there of infections, etc., especially for people that have some predisposition to being sick. We also see that the culture changes. And again, a lot of these things, a lot of the good things happen in a company without being planned during talks like I just described. And so we currently do not force anyone to come to the office, but we strongly encourage people to come to the office. But we leave it more or less up to the leaders. if you're a leader of a department or of a team, you should be in touch with your team. You know your team best, and we trust these people that they can judge it. However, what we see is that many people that come to the office really, really enjoy it. And I have talked with them and say, yes, come to the office. It's wonderful. I mean, we have this rooftop terrace. You can have lunch with your colleagues. You know how wonderful that feels? And also for me, I spent a lot of time at home, working from home, and worked. But coming to the office gives me so much more energy that I really enjoy it. And I try to pass this energy on and this passion on to everyone else. At one point, though, we will switch to a different mode of working. We've made two things clear. Number one, a pure home office company we will never be, because we strongly believe in the power of co-location and personal meetings. But we need to experiment. So we set up an initial plan on how to deal with things, and that is quite straightforward. You have to be 2 days per week in the office, and the rest of the week is up to you. Welcoming newcomers, introducing newcomers, etc., has to be done in person in the office. And we also strongly encourage teams to also come to the office when there are newcomers, because it's pretty sad if you come to the office and nobody is there. But we'll experiment with that. If that's too much and people say, well, it doesn't work, we can cut it back. If we think it's not enough, then we'll increase the number of days, and we will test and learn.
Yeah, that sounds logical. We are also going to introduce some kind of principles. We are going to be more free, let the people be responsible over where they like to work from. But it's going to be just, a trial, a pilot. Let's see how it works, and perhaps let's change the principles after we get the experience. So yeah, it's new age after COVID age, So
in many aspects of life, it's very new.
Yeah. Just one last question regarding Visual Meta. There is so many tech companies in Berlin, actually, as far as I know, so many headquarters of international tech companies, naming, Zalando, right? About You, I guess, your mother company, Idalo, etc. How hard is it actually to get the people there?
Very. The market is big, but quite competitive. And you have to always up your game constantly. There has been an incredible dynamic on the employer market in Berlin, or the labor market in Berlin. When I joined the company in 2015, the minimum wage had just been introduced. Before that, Berlin was full of interns that worked for very little or even nothing. We as a company, Ladenzeile, we never paid nothing, but we paid very little back then. And we got very decent people. We have heavily increased wages over the past years, but we've also increased, our standards a lot during the last years. And I want to be honest, we're in a transformation period at the moment. So Ladenzeile, our German product, has been top of the pops for quite a few years. It's not anymore, but it's our aspiration to be that. And we have to up our game in terms of technology, in terms of product, in terms of design. And in order to be able to do that, you need senior people from outside the company that have seen a lot of other companies, that have experienced high-performing companies, very product-oriented companies. We've been in the past a very marketing-focused company, and of course, we shouldn't let go of that strength. But we want to become more of a product-focused company. So you have to build up a high-performing team. So we upped our game also on that end. We've increased the expectations and the standards that we have. And that way we're, at the moment, very much transforming the entire company. And that's the good thing. In Berlin, you get these kinds of people. Right? If you are in the middle of nowhere, you'll have a very hard time to hire senior product, marketing, tech people that have seen companies like the ones you have mentioned.
Yeah, I can agree more that actually it's really important to have senior people, and it's hard to get them. But yeah, it's about the employer branding, how attractive you are. But like having senior people strengthens the company that much that it always pays off. I think so. Anyway, let's move on. Johannes, let's back up a little bit about you. Like you said, you've been a managing director for the last 6 years, right? And I saw on your LinkedIn that before you had been actually a consultant in the McKinsey company.
Yes.
Which is very usual way actually that people start their career in a consulting company like BCG, McKinsey, etc. I wanted to ask you actually, is it, in your opinion, according to your experience, is it actually a good kind of way in the career of young people to start in such a company? Is it a good precondition of being a successful manager or a leader in the upcoming years?
It has pros and cons like everything. I think on the pro side, you get a very, you get to an environment that is very ambitious, very hardworking, very analytical, very aspirational, etc., very, very energetic. And you build up a network, you build up skills. In the beginning, it doesn't really feel like you build up skills because you have the feeling you don't learn. You don't learn much because you jump from topic to topic and you just solve problems. But once you, after 1, 2, 3 years, you look back, or you see more junior, say, colleagues that just joined the firm, you see, okay, wow, I did learn a lot about managing myself, managing teams, managing projects, structuring problems, structuring or solving problems, and so on and so on. In that respect, it's a very good start. Plus, you have the employer brand, of course, right? In that respect, it's a very good start. And you get to learn a lot of different companies, different industries, and so on. I think things that you do not learn well enough in order to be really well prepared for a managing position is leadership. And that is because I think you don't really have to lead at McKinsey. You have very energetic, very motivated overachievers that are very easy to lead. And one thing that I've also learned throughout the last years is that it is very hard to create a really meaningful purpose for a company. We've upped our game also in that respect significantly. We've spent weeks on defining our brand. What are we about? What is our purpose? What is our vision? Why are we there? Why is it good that we are there? So it was actually a month. We went to a couple of workshops internally, for example, and we came to a conclusion. Then we looked at it again a couple of weeks later and said, no, it's not it. So we went through the whole process again. And now we have reinvented ourselves in terms of our company purpose. And we've defined it to be finding favorites, because that's what we want to be about. But it's not only about that phrase. It's actually about, the story around it. Why is it important to, empower users to find their favorites in fashion and living and lifestyle? And it's rooted in a very fundamental human truth, for example. And that is something I personally completely underestimated, how important it is to have that. Because I'm a I'm a businessman by heart. I studied that. I always wanted to do that. So doing business in itself was valuable to me, but it's not anymore to everyone, and it's of course not to everyone out there. So giving people a deeper meaning for why selling shoes online is great is something that is not easy, but I think we have found a really, really good answer to that. And I'm happy about that. But it doesn't stop there, of course, right? Then you have to make it happen. What does it mean for the product? What does it mean for our user journey on our side, but also away from our side? What does it mean for our design So we have that. After that, we have spent months again on reinventing our design. We have spent months on our values, on our guiding principles. All of these things are incredibly important, and some of these things McKinsey does really well. Like, for example, the value-driven work. It's a very value-driven company. Some of these things, what is our purpose really at McKinsey? I couldn't have answered that. I can answer it now for my company. And then you need to build up an organization. McKinsey is a very structured organization. You just grow into that. But looking at a product as it is today, and looking at a dream that you've just invented, and that is only it only exists in your dreams, in your imagination, and then sketching a path from, okay, how do we get from where are we now, with incredibly many problems. And that I am sure everybody comes up with problems, and you have dozens of them. And if you wanted, you could drown problems every day. But sketching a path from, okay, where are we now to that, to that dream that you have, in terms of what does the organization look like in terms of structure, in terms of people, what are the values, what is the culture that you would like to have, what are the technologies that you need to employ, what is your employer brand in order to get to that point, to attract all of these people, etc. So there are a lot of puzzle pieces that need to come together in order to really to make it work. And if one of these puzzle pieces is missing, you won't fill the whole picture. And it's a constant iteration. It can be really, really exhausting also sometimes, because companies, like people, tend to fall back in old habits. So you have to constantly repeat yourself. Sometimes you have to say, sorry, I was wrong, right? We took a wrong decision. That happens. All of these things happen, and you just need to keep it up and keep going in the direction that you have laid out, and follow that dream. And you never know whether you're going to make it or not. I read something really, really inspiring lately, because it can be really also an energy drain, You never know whether you're going to succeed, so you better enjoy the way there. It is, I want to be honest, it is something that I need to become a lot better at, because I tend to, always have, the goal in mind, and think about what we are not good at the moment, what we need to become better at. I see a lot of these problems. So enjoying life to the fullest is not my strength. This is where I need to improve a lot still.
We're so similar, Johannes. I completely understand your feelings, because I have the same. And by the way, it's also funny that we are actually doing the same stuff like you are, what you were just describing, meaning the culture, values, etc. And by the way, I showed a really nice podcast with a guest of mine, David Vrba, which is the last one podcast. It's in Czech. It's not for you, but I'm just saying it loud to the listeners who haven't listened to it yet. It's worth it. Just do it, listen to it, and we are just discussing exactly what you were just saying. How actually we are creating the values, how important it is, and actually exactly that we of our age, we just love business, we love success, and we love financial successes and growth, etc. But actually, the younger generations are different. They're looking for different things in what they're doing. They're looking for some kind of higher meaning, of what they're doing, it's much harder actually for us to deliver it to them so that they are engaged, so that they like what they do, etc. So exactly, I think this is happening everywhere, and I completely know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and for good reason, right? I mean, we do have problems these days that we also used to have back in the days when we were younger. I mean, we're not really old, but anyhow, at least I don't feel that old. Depends on who's listening. I'm 39, by the way, so depends on who's listening. But yes, I mean, problems that that have already been known back when we were students or just started are much more imminent now and much more present. And you have to find a balance. So, next to freedom, sustainability, freedom, customer centricity, and impact, the fourth key value that we have is sustainability. And I think we can do a lot for that. And if we do have a duty to do a lot, because we're selling or comparing consumer goods, and we can do our part, informing our users about whether something is sustainably produced or not. Letting them make a very informed choice so that it's really a favorite of them, instead of mindless shopping of anything that, an influencer put into the camera because he or she has been paid for it, or you've seen it on TV. So really to take a very conscious decision on what to buy and why to buy things has a lot of impact. Plus, we are a company like any other company. We do have a CO2 footprint, and we can work on that.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I wanted to say at the very beginning to say sorry to the listeners that actually the quality of audio is not that high today, because those who are listening us on Spotify don't see it, but we are just doing the podcast via online via the laptops. So obviously the quality of audio is not that high. I'm sorry about that. Just I wanted to say that to the listeners. Johannes, last point about you. I remember that, I don't know, some couple of months ago, you actually told me that you had gone through some kind of hard times in terms of your health.
Yes.
And now you just, before we started shooting the podcast, you kind of told me that it was probably a burnout. A burnout is a big topic, I would say. So I would really appreciate if you told us more about what you went through and perhaps find some learnings and outcomes.
Yes, I mean, I'm pretty open about that. I was sick. I had an intestinal disease that took a lot of energy. So it wasn't a classic burnout, but I felt really burned out because that intestinal disease led to the fact that my own body produced toxins that intoxicated me. So and that probably over years. So I just felt really bad, if you want so. And talking about what do you learn at McKinsey, what do you not learn? You certainly learn to work hard and be, very focused on maximum impact, for example. You don't learn so well to listen to your own body. It's something. People say it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. But if everyone around you is sprinting, you kind of feel like, okay, I have to sprint. But you always have to balance things. So high performance, high impact also is something that comes with health. You can only be very impactful as a person if you are healthy, both physically and mentally. And I personally believe it's a lie if people tell me spending 14 hours in an office is going to keep you mentally and physically healthy. So that is something I had to learn the hard way. You need rest. And to everyone out there, listening and who's ambitious in terms of business goals or any other goal, you of course always need to work hard. And I know very few people, that that got successful without blood, sweat, and tears. But always take a rest. It's important. There's no shame in it. And again, you've got to enjoy life. You can't just live for the work. Also, the other way around is really important.
I think a lot of people find this fact out only after they go through the burnout.
Yes.
So yeah, let's say it loud once more. Like, rest is important, and do start resting. Do start, resting physically and mentally, and doing some sport, etc. Before you burn out, because then it's a painful learning, right?
Yes, and I think it's important to know that you always have a bias in your perception. I mean, you look out there and you see all these incredibly successful people, and they might not only be successful, they might also be, beautiful and sportive and rich, or whatever you desire. And if I learned one thing in life, then it's do not compare yourself to others. It will either make you arrogant or really unhappy. That's not from me, it's from Max Ehrmann, an American poet. Rather compare, and that's what Jordan Peterson writes in one of his books, 12 Rules for Life. Compare yourself to yourself from yesterday. And if you feel you made progress, then it's a good thing. And don't care too much about other people. Today's world is a lot, and I mean, I'm active in the digital world, but today's world is a lot about comparing to others, showing off to others. Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot have, pushed this really hard. But also in the past, I mean, we had magazines with rich and beautiful people. It's fine to look at them, but don't compare yourself to anyone out there. Live your life, take your decisions. You know what's good for you, then you know more than many of the people out there.
It's really nice what you just said. I fully agree with that. And but it's hard. It's hard not to compare ourselves to Elon Musk, and people like that. But you're really right. You're really right, and it makes you unhappy, comparing yourself to other people, to the successful people. But the truth is that actually these are, 1/100% of the most successful people. So comparing ourselves to them does not make any sense, right? Anyway, let's move on. Johannes, more to the business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, actually, how does the German e-commerce look? There's Amazon as a dominant player, and we, the Czechs, or in our bubble in the e-commerce Czech market, we are kind of scared that Amazon would come, because wherever they came, they just started to rule the market, conquered the markets and became dominant, because actually wherever they are truly dominant. So how is it actually, how does the e-commerce market environment look in Germany, having Amazon there? Like, how is it actually, how easy or hard is it for the other players on the market to be successful, etc.?
So in terms of, let's start maybe first with size and the consumers.
Yeah.
The German e-commerce market is growing at, normally growing at high single-digit numbers year over year. And with one exception, that was last year, of course, due to the pandemic. I think that was the case everywhere, so no big deal. Yes, it is absolutely dominated by Amazon. The estimations vary, but you can say that Amazon is around about 50% of the German e-commerce market. So half is Amazon. And The rest is, say, distributed between a couple of big ones and many medium and small ones. So there are still tens of thousands of online shops out there. And in fact, also one effect of the pandemic is that there have been more and more shops out there. People that used to sell their stuff purely offline in a brick and mortar store moved online simply because they had to. The shop rise of Shopify, for example, is clear proof of that. Globally, we see that trend. So the diversity online is actually even increasing. However, also the concentration on Amazon has increased throughout the last years. The driver behind that is primarily the Amazon marketplace. And what we see also recently is that the marketplace is becoming more and more professional. There are even companies that are buying successful or maybe also not so successful Amazon marketplace sellers and professionalizing them. And so the big growth driver behind Amazon is the Amazon marketplace. I don't have the numbers on top of my mind, to be honest, but the growth rate of the Amazon marketplace is a lot higher than that of the Amazon retail business. The question is, why is Amazon so dominant? And who are the other players? You have classical players like Otto. Otto used to be a catalog business. They're around for decades already. They used to be a physical catalog business, but they have managed to really turn their business into a digital business. They're not printing the catalog anymore. I think 2 years ago or so, they have stopped printing the catalog. And they have only their websites. They are running under the brand of Otto, but they also have a lot of other brands like Bauer and most notably lately because they IPO'd About You. And they're very active in the fields of fashion and living like we are. Then you, of course, have Zalando as a big player. You also have Human as a big player, for example, and so on and so on. So there are, probably a dozen or 2 dozens of really significant other players. And then you have a couple of other smaller players. My personal hypothesis on why is Amazon so strong, in my opinion, they have 2 main competitive advantages. One is they've got everything. 2 is they're incredibly fast in delivering. And that's it. The latter, in my opinion, is what really makes Amazon unique. You order today, you have it tomorrow. And that is something, that is, you as a user, you just get used to that. And it comes also, of course, with a couple of other benefits. If you are Amazon Prime customer, you also have the Prime Video, for example. They're smart about these kinds of things, right? So you have also a couple of lock-in effects, whether that's, in terms of coddle law or competitive law, whether that's really legal, I don't know. But they're bundling these things very smartly. And yes, and I think that is what makes them so successful. And they're day after day, they're more successful and more dominant than before.
Mm. And in terms of the Amazon marketplace, you said that actually that's the growth driver. But what I've heard is that actually what Amazon does and what they're badly known for is that they have the new member of their marketplace, which sells something what Amazon does not have in stock. But, after some time, they kind of cherry pick the know-how, cherry pick the products which are well sold in the Amazon marketplace, and then they kind of take it over, meaning they start to sell it themselves. Is it true, or is it just some fake news what what maybe was happening in the past, but now it's not happening any longer? Do you know?
I cannot judge this fully. It's something that's been alleged quite a few times already, and also say from serious players. The European Commission is now looking into that because they are in Europe, or in the European Union, they are in charge of enforcing anti-competitive or laws against anti-competitive behavior, and that clearly is or would be anti-competitive. So they're looking into that. I don't know the status of the proceedings. As far as I know, they have opened proceedings and are looking into that now. I haven't heard anything else on whether it's true or not. They haven't come to a conclusion.
Maybe having the proceedings right now, they kind of slowed down this kind of activity. Let's see in the future.
Amazon, yes, maybe, I don't know that. It's again, we are not an Amazon seller. Amazon is a partner of ours, also an important partner. Undoubtedly, if you have 50% of the market, you don't get around them. We didn't experience that, but there are people out in the market that say that this is happening.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to actually one very, very interesting topic, which is Google. And I must say that actually Google is the reason why we know each other for some time already, a couple of years, because we together, plus some other 30, 40 European press comparison sites, are kind of fighting in some respect against Google. It all started back in 2017 when actually the European Commission found Google guilty of misusing their dominant position and fined them. At that time, it was 2.4 billion euros, as far as I remember. And, we were hoping for a treatment. We were hoping for actually, having this situation solved. But it's been 4 years now and nothing much changed. And that is why we are in touch. And we are in touch with the other players, and we are kind of trying to take some steps, to kind of win it, because the situation is hard. But I would like actually to take the opportunity to have you here to kind of tell the listeners more about that, what it is about, what perhaps the danger in the future is, etc. Let's talk about that for a while. What actually happened back in 2017, and what was happening during those 4 years by now?
Yeah. Well, Czech Republic is in two respects very different from Germany. You don't have Amazon yet, and you have a second very strong search engine, which is Seznam. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but I think what I'm talking about, right?
You did, Johannes. But on the other hand, honestly, their market share is going really down, and they say, or it's like publicly said, that at this moment it's 15% only, and 85% is Google. So yes, it's here, but honestly, Google is getting as big dominance as in Germany.
Very stronger. So the Czech Republic is actually, slowly but surely developing in the direction of the rest of Europe, or maybe even the world, maybe except for Russia and China. Google in Europe has round about 95% market share in the search, in the internet search, general internet search. So it clearly is a monopoly, and in large parts, well-earned monopoly. They did a really good job on building a great search engine. They've also defended their market in very smart ways, and the success of the search engine is also based on a very smart technology of getting all the data from pretty much everyone, and knowing their customers better, or their users better than the users themselves would. So they have a lot of data, a lot of personal data. Also, if you're suffering from a sickness, they probably know before your doctor knows, because you've Googled it. So that is what their success is based on, and they have that monopoly. And I'm not going to challenge that, because I also admire Google to a certain extent. for having been able to build that kind of product. And not only that, but also Android and Tag Manager and analytics and so on and so on. A lot of fantastic products are coming from Google. However, what I dislike, and we as a company dislike, and that's why we complained almost 10 years ago at the European Commission, is that they are abusing that monopoly. And what they're doing is they have the monopoly in general search. If you search something online, you Google it. They are even the synonym for searching something online. So, and what they're doing is they have that general search monopoly, and they're turning it into specialty search monopolies. So if you Google for Nike sneakers, if you Google for a new camera, if you Google for, say, a new restaurant, they always put their search on top of the page and right onto the results page, whereas everyone else is below that, without images, at least one more click away, and often below the scroll. You have to scroll once or twice to see offerings that are not from Google. And a lot of people say, so what? What does it matter? And why is that? Why should that even be illegal? And the simple answer is it's illegal because it's bad for the people. And the way I explain it to my grandmother is, imagine you have a town, and in that town there's one person that owns 95% of the houses, and you're running a bakery. Your neighbor is running a sports shop. Now, that person says, you know what? I'm going to cancel your contract. I'll put my own bakery in there. And I'm going to cancel the contract with your neighbor, and I'm going to put my sports shop in there. And all of a sudden you realize, well, because that person owns 95% of the real estates of the houses, it will also own 95% of the bakery business, of the sports shop business, of the restaurants, of the whatever other business you have there. And even if it may not be, say, legally allowed to run, for example, pharmacies or a doctor's office or anything like that, they can charge the hell out of these companies or the doctors because they have absolutely no alternative whatsoever. Now, what happens? You have a monopoly. People in that town have no choice but to buy in your place. So you'll increase prices. Very, very simple. And we have seen that. We have proof for that. 2 years ago, we've run an analysis in 12 EU countries, and we've proven that products in the Google Shopping unit, which is the comparison shopping, either product comparison or a price comparison feature on the very top of the page, prices are on average 14% higher than the same products in the leading competitor's website. In the area that we're most, strong in, i.e. fashion and living, in fashion, it's a whopping 37%. So if you buy your clothes through the Google Shopping unit, you will pay 37% on average more. And that is because they're charging monopoly prices. And you can avoid that by clicking on something that is one click away. But people don't do that because people don't even see it and people are not aware of that, right? Coming back to the example of that town, you will have to know that everyone or every single shop is owned by that one shop. If you don't know that, you don't realize that. And going, I don't know, driving half an hour to the next town in order to, to shop in another town, in another shop that's independent, that might be an alternative. But many people don't do that because they're unaware or they're lazy or whatever, or they don't care. So, and that is why that is illegal, and that's why the European Commission rightfully judged that this is an illegal abuse of market power and must not be done. And we were very happy about that. And I think it's fair and just because it doesn't challenge the monopoly of Google. It doesn't say Google must not have that search monopoly. It only says they must not use it to the disadvantage of the consumer and competitors. And I think that's fair. Now, what has happened ever since, to be honest, almost nothing. And that is the problem. And that's why we got to know each other, because I don't even remember exactly how we met, but we met and we talked about this and said, okay, well, if somebody has been fined and somebody's conduct has been found to be illegal, and then the conduct changes almost not at all, then there must be something wrong. And in fact, that is, I'm full of respect for Commissioner Vestager, today Executive Vice President Vestager of the European Commission, that she was the first person in the world to really double down on that case and to bring it to a decision. And the European Commission has really done something completely unprecedented in the entire world. And we see that a couple of countries are following their example. What I'm unhappy about is the hesitancy with which the European Commission is acting or not acting at the moment. Because if you find somebody and you tell them to stop an illegal behavior, you also need to enforce it. Otherwise, at one point, people will just make fun of you and you will lose all the power in the market and you will also lose the respect. And you will also lose all the business. Because let me be clear, it is a problem currently not only in e-commerce, it is also a problem in hotel search, flight search, job search, weather search, local search. What else?
Travel packages.
Yes, then real estate is coming. Car sales are coming. So the entire European digital economy is under a absolutely substantial or maybe even existential threat from being eradicated, admittedly over decades, right? It took Google a decade to almost monopolize the e-commerce comparison shopping area. But we're talking about economics here, right? So we think in decades. In 10, 20 years down the road, we need to have that kind of foresight. So it really is important to get to a compliance mechanism, so to a solution to the problem that really does something. And we're not there yet. And people are unaware. I think you and I were also running into that problem regularly. People are unaware also in our business or in other business, like companies that are running job boards, for example, or running real estate websites, etc. They are absolutely unaware of the problem that it's such an existential threat. And at the moment, it seems that there's nothing being done about it, and that's why we keep raising this topic. There is great consensus in the industry that this is a problem, and the European Union or the European Commission needs to double down on really having an effective remedy to the abuse of market power. Last year, we have sent an open letter to Executive Vice President Vestager that was signed by 165 digital companies and associations saying you need to get this done, otherwise the European digital economy will die. And it does not stop there. Also, everything else will, so also the physical economy or the physical part of the economy. Europe is strong in cars, for example. Skoda you have in Czech Republic. We are going towards a situation where, for example, cars are going to drive autonomously. Now, what counts today is, how does the car drive? How can I steer it? If I step on the gas pedal, does it sprint off well or not? None of these things will matter in the future anymore because the cars will drive autonomously. Now, what matters then? It is, say, comfort of a car, right? And it's how quickly does your autonomously driving car get you from here to there? And that is a pure data game. You need to have real-time data of where everybody is, of how people drive, their behavior, where they want to go, and so on and so on. And the two companies that know this today are Google and Facebook, because they track you everywhere, every time, on all your devices. They know exactly where you work. They know exactly where you live. They know where you shop. They know how fast you drive. They know which route you normally take, and so on and so on. They can predict that behavior, so they can also know where do you have, or which route do you have to take in order to get to your destination in the quickest possible way. And that's why they will at one point also be dominant in these areas, also in the physical areas. And again, if we don't stop it now, at one point it will become unstoppable, and we will be dominated by a handful of globally acting companies that know everything about everyone, are much bigger and powerful than any government in the world, and they will dictate how markets evolve. And that's why this is such an important thing to take care of, and that is why we should care. It took me a long time to explain that. I'm sorry for that, everyone listening. But it's something that I'm very enthusiastic about because it's simply the right thing to do.
Johannes, I'm so thankful for such a really nice description. I wouldn't say it that well. You clearly explained. I completely agree with every single word you said. I'm a liberal right-wing voter, but also in a liberal democracy, monopoly is dangerous. It is.
Absolutely.
It is harmful. It is harmful. And this is an unbelievable, powerful monopoly. Unbelievable. And exactly, like you said it, like the whole economy actually goes digitalized. So then what is left in a couple of tens of years, when everything is digitalized and the digital world is being ruled by a couple of, giants, either American or Chinese ones, what is left there? What is left in the European economy? Nothing. So, and what makes me really scared is actually to envision what has happened during the last 10 years, and then what will happen during the upcoming couple of tens of years. How the world, how the economy, how the European economical world will look in 50, in 100 years. If it goes this pace, if it goes this direction, like you said, there'll be no European economy, because there'll be no European digital economy. But the economy in 50 years will be only digital. So yes, you said it exactly like I feel it. Like you said, full respect to Google. I love their products. By the way, now we are shooting this online podcast via Google Meet. It works. It works fucking well. Like most of the products invented or actually being bought by Google work really well, and I use them every day. But this is really dangerous, and we have to bear it in mind. And I'm so kind of disappointed by the fact that back in 2017 we were celebrating the big success, but it's been 4 years, nothing really happened, and we were still trying to take steps to kind of persuade the European Union to take real steps, not only to find them, because what is 2.4 billion euros for Google? It's nothing. It's literally nothing.
It's like 2 weeks worth of profits.
Yeah. So
building on what you said, it's a pretty dystopian future that we're envisioning, but I think it's realistic, and I think it is also, because you said you love their products. It's also, I'm not only disappointed by the fact that there's nothing happening in Brussels for the last 4 years, really. I'm also disappointed by Google, I have to say, because this company used to say, do no evil. Now, the further we dig, at least the European Commission alone has fined them, I think, 10 billion altogether, which is, again, I think they made 18 billion in the last quarter or so in profits. So it's half a quarter for Google. It's a footnote in their quarterly report, even though it's an incredible amount of money for every normal person or company. But this company, they have been fined by the European Commission for 3 such abuses. Now, in the US, for example, we have found out about Project Bernanke, where everybody that is familiar with the digital world knows Google Display Network or Google AdSense, which is 2 sides of the same product, whether you're a publisher or an advertiser. It turns out that Google has rigged the auction between the advertiser and the publisher side in a way that alone in 2013, when they started rigging their own system, have made 230 million additional profits in the first year. And another example from the US, Project Jedi Blue. Turned out that Facebook was doubling down on a technology called header bidding, which is also in display marketing or display advertising, a new technology that is much more powerful than the technology that Google used to employ. And that way, Facebook became a real threat to Google's display advertising business. What they've done is they have colluded. They struck a deal. It's Project Jedi Blue. Okay, Facebook, you go out of that business. You leave that business to us. It's also a monopoly business, by the way. Google has by far more than 90% of market share also in that business. So you stay out of that business. In return, on 90% of the display advertisements, we guarantee you a placement even if you bid significantly lower than your competitors. So now we have 2 monopolists, Google and Facebook, that are colluding to keep competitors out. And those are now altogether 5 examples of how Google has really misbehaved massively and has behaved in morally moral standards that are absolutely below what you can expect from a company that used to say, do no evil. They started trying to make the world better. But they've really turned into a comic style villain lately that is all concerned all about itself, all about even making even more profit. $1 trillion worth of market value is not enough. And that is really it's also a sad thing. And also disappointment in that respect.
Yeah. I'm so unhappy that we're finishing the podcast in such a frustrating and negative way. So let's try something really positive, Johannes.
I'm not. See, it's a very dystopian future, or maybe not even future, but present that we're living in, right? we are being dominated by people or by companies that constantly spy on us, that sell us to others, etc., etc. But it's by far nothing that we can do anything about. And we see, for example, in the European Union that we have now the Digital Markets Act. It's coming. The European Commission is pushing this. We see more activities also in the US, even in the US. Let's see what we're getting out of there. I am still not celebrating yet, because all we see are starts. The biggest donator to the Biden campaign was Google. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, was actually supposed to become a secretary in the cabinet of President Biden. Those are bad news. The good news is we have Lina Khan now in the US, who is known for being strict on monopolists and very prone to digital markets, etc. So we'll have to see what's coming out of that. It can still be normalized, but we have to be aware of the fact that if we don't do anything about it, it will be what we just discussed.
I didn't know the fact about. I didn't know that actually Google was the biggest donator of Joe Biden's campaign. That's interesting. But yeah, I wanted to say the same. That actually now it seems that even in the USA, under the leadership of Joe Biden, there is some steps in the area of antitrust. They are now discussing that perhaps all the giants should be divided into more companies, etc. So I see a kind of a light in the end of the tunnel, and also I kind of still believe that in the European Union, we or the representatives will kind of get to know it and will actually do something about that, and that what we just draw, what we envisioned, will not come true. And let's hope for that. Let's work hard. Let's work hard to keep explaining that, because I think most of the people, including the politicians, don't see it naturally. Obviously, can't see it. Like, we are the insiders. We are in the business, and we can feel it. We can see it every day. So this is exactly why I actually asked you to explain the situation, why I wanted to discuss with you this topic. Although all the other topics we were discussing were also really great. Thanks for that, Johannes. It was a real pleasure to see you after some time, although only digitally and online. But it was great. Before saying goodbye to you, let me just speak a minute in Czech. Vážení diváci a posluchači, doufám, že se vám tento díl líbil. Johane, že jsme nakoukli do Německa a poznali jsme trošku německý jazykový biznis, pobavili jsme se o tak jako důležitých věcech, jako je monopolní postavení Google a tak dále. Ještě jednou se omlouvám za kvalitu zvuku, natáčíme to online, nemáme ani já, ani Johannes nemáme úplně perfektní hardware, takže kvalita zvuku je trošku horší, než když to točíme ve studiu, ale tak já doufám, že ten obsah, že obsah vyvážil kvalitu zvuku. Chtěl jsem vám jako vždy říct, že budu rád za jakýkoliv vaše připomínky, za feedback, když mi pošlete sem na mailu, na Twitteru, na LinkedInu, budu rád za vaše připomínky. Budu rád, když dáte odebírat, follow a když tweetnete o nás a tak dále. Zkrátka pomozte mi dostat náš podcast mezi víc lidí. And Johannes, again, thanks a lot. I wish you a great day. Thanks again for joining us. And hopefully we'll see each other soon in person, right?
Thank you very much for having me, and greetings to all the iPhones and YouTube watchers at home. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and see you soon.
See you. Bye.